I do a lot of thinking when I'm driving, and I know that's scary. But anyways, and it hit me. This huge thought overwhelmed me. So you have life, limb, liberty. In between section 2 to section 15 of the Charter. Those are the sections that can be removed by the notwithstanding clause. Now this is how warped this charter of ours is, this violation of Canada. If any provincial legislator decides someone with brown eyes loses their right hand and they implement the notwithstanding clause, it is a constitutional document and it stands. That is an extreme case, but it would be legal under Trudeau's violation of Canada. They have every right with the notwithstanding clause to murder someone. They have every right with the notwithstanding clause to steal from you. Why did we allow this? Why we didn't allow it? Trudeau did not have a referendum on this document. The notwithstanding clause was put in at the last minute. It was called the Night of the Knives. It was a deal, and Jean Chrétien was the guy that worked the deal with all the premiers. And you want to know why the 8 premiers took it to the Supreme Court of Canada? They didn't want property rights put in the document in the first place because that would give the federal government the right to legislate for provincial properties. So now we're getting into this. The British North America Act 1867 was our Constitution. I have been reading my face off about the framers, the guys that put this together, the discussions they had. Now, George Cartier was the Attorney General at the time. He was from Quebec. His statement was on the British North America Act, if this act is allowed to stand the way it is written, the French will be happy and they will be safe. The English will be happy and they will be safe. In 1881, the British North America Act was completely bastardized by the Privy Council in England. It was caused by political interference by a guy named Viscount Haldane, aka Richard Burden, who was a socialist. And this is where we can look over at Beth. Because Richard Burden, or aka Viscount Haldane, was one of the creators of the London School of Economics, the Fabian Society. He also went to school in Germany with Otto Bismarck. He also saluted the way the Germans actually did things. He is a parliamentarian who was with the Liberal Party in England and went to the Labour Party because he couldn't get the Liberals to do what he wanted. He swayed the Privy Council, he and Sir Watson, a Scottish jurist, swayed the Privy Council in 1881, and the judge's name was Barnes Peacock, and he ruled on a case that we Canadians know as the Parsons case. And it allowed the province of Ontario to interfere in contracts. They also were told to ignore all previous rulings in regards to the British North America Act. And if you want to know exactly what the British North America Act is all about, get Mercer versus the Attorney General of Ontario from 1881. Because in the Mercer case from 1881, the only control the province has over property and civil rights and all things merely local and private in nature are what belongs to the province. Because if the soil is not in the Dominion's regulatory scheme is illegal. Stevenson's versus Robertson. Our entire history has been screwed over by legislators with their own agendas. Now, back to the French language. In the British North America Act, federal level parliamentarians, either English or French. Quebec, French. The rest of Canada, English. There was even a reference done, I think it was in 1996 or 97 in Manitoba. And instead of using the charter, they used the British North America Act. How weird is that? But in 2003 now we find out that this charter, this violation of Canadians, cannot overrule the Constitution. So I've been on this little thing about, Brian Lillig was talking about how in the Senate freedom of speech has been stalled because Section 13 of the Human Rights Code is sitting there because the senators won't make up their mind. So I decided to email every senator. And I explained to them why we need to remove Section 13 of the Human Rights Code. I got an email back from one of the senators saying that our inalienable rights are protected under Section 26 of the Charter and that our dignity is part of our inalienable rights. Well, my inalienable right is my freedom of speech. So why is someone's dignity more important than my inalienable right of free speech? I never got a response. But the thing that got me was, had there been a human rights code when the women were fighting for the vote, they all would have been nailed under Section 13 for promoting hate speech and harming the dignity of men because they wanted the vote. They hadn't thought about that. So how are we to grow as a nation if we don't have freedom of speech? On the other hand, how are we to grow as a nation if we all cannot understand one another? Now, I went through, French immersion when I was a kid. I was like 7 or 8 years old. I can say my name. I can say potato, les pommes de terre.
La patate.
And then I can go, il fait froid aujourd'hui. I've got a pretty good accent though, don't I? Thank you. That's it. They tried to experiment with kids time and time again about the French immersion. And now Dalton McGuinty has signed on to an agreement that Ontario is going to be and is a bilingual province.
No.
Now we've already been through that throughout history. We had, the Royal Proclamation of 1763, which created the first 4 provinces. Then we go along and then we have the split up in the 1775, the Quebec Act. And then we go along to that was the split up and then back together again in 1840. And then we were split up again in 1867 because we had Upper and Lower Canada, even though we were the province of Canada in that document. Now, if you read the British North America Act, Section 94 of that act says that the federal government may make law for property and civil rights in Canada. The provinces have the option of not accepting it, but it doesn't give them or grant them any authority to legislate for it. This is the whole thing. And Quebec was intentionally left out of Section 94 to protect its own French Napoleonic civil code. This is why Quebec would be happy with their culture, happy with their religion, happy with their language, everything. And it's because of the bastardization that now look at what we are pushing against. So every Canadian, number one, top and foremost, should be writing letters. And I know you've been pushing on this for 40 years, and I appreciate that, I do. But if you aren't prepared to drop the ink on the paper, get it to the MPs, get it to your MPPs, particularly MPPs now with this new policy of the Liberal government. I don't care.
What new
Because
policy?
Bob, the new policy is we are bilingual, period.
Is that a proposal or is
No,
that
it's done.
really?
January 1st.
January 1st.
Yeah, January 1st.
The notice came out December 31st at 9 a.m. It was implemented January 1st.
Yeah.
It's up to you folks